There is no escape route, no hidden path to bypass the consuming heat of the forge. The fire is not a challenge you sidestep. It is the very passage you must inhabit. And that passage, that arduous through, demands nothing less than the absolute dismantling of your most cherished illusions, who you believed yourself to be, and the rigid, often childish blueprint you held for how existence ought to unfold. This brutal prerequisite explains the profound rarity of genuine awakening. It is not that a cosmic lottery chooses a few favored souls. It is because when the terrifying precipice of the unknown is reached, the vast majority instinctively recoil. They retreat, scrambling back toward the familiar architecture of their comfortable, yet suffocating cage. They eagerly resuscitate the old, recognizable roles and identities. They invariably choose the known texture of their suffering over the terrifying, unbounded potential of genuine transformation. And let there be no judgment cast upon that desperate choice. The ego, the false self, despite its inherent fragility and endless limitations, presents a profound offering that awakening pointedly denies. An absolute, though illusory, certainty. You know the narrative of your life, even if that story is woven entirely from falsehoods. You understand your position, even if that place feels like an inescapable prison. You are familiar with the bylaws of your existence, even as those very rules are slowly crushing the life out of you. Awakening, conversely, extends no such guarantees. It offers only truth. And truth, remember, is the most demanding of lovers, a force that will accept nothing less than the totality of your being. Now, perhaps the veil lifts slightly. You begin to grasp the underlying mechanism of your reality. You pierce the pervasive lie. You recognize that this turbulent, painful, and often utterly bewildering experience you are undergoing, your messy awakening, is not a regrettable misstep. It is the authentic event. But mere intellectual comprehension is a poor defense against the flames. It is simply insufficient to carry you through the crucible. What is needed are surgical, actionable disciplines. Not the saccharine, commodified techniques perpetually marketed to you, but the robust, necessary kind that actually hold fast when the entirety of your world is collapsing. Allow me to transfer to you the essential, foundational tools that few others will dare to share, precisely because they offer no promise of ease. Their only guarantee is reality. The first discipline is what I term the truth audit. This practice is designed to mercilessly expose every point where you continue to perform a version of yourself rather than simply being. For the next 7 days, schedule your phone timer to randomly chime 3 times daily. The moment that sound breaks your focus, halt all activity and pose yourself this single, penetrating question. Am I truly being real in this exact moment, or am I merely performing a role? Do not judge the response. Simply observe it. Are you genuinely absorbing the words of the person before you, or are you executing the socially acceptable role of the good listener? Are you actually enjoying this activity, or are you doing it because the script dictates you should? Are you articulating the genuine core of your truth, or are you voicing the safest, most approved upon sentiment? This audit is almost deceptively simple in its structure, yet its impact is explosive. It will shred your self-deceptions faster than 1,000 hours spent in forced meditation, because it forces you to witness the painful truth. How utterly infrequent your genuine presence is, how ceaselessly you default to wearing various masks, and how routinely you betray your own inner knowing moment after agonizing moment. This sudden, raw, and deeply uncomfortable awareness is precisely where true awakening actually strikes root. The second practice confronts what is arguably the most challenging aspect of spiritual emergence, remaining present with towering, intense emotion without resorting to spiritual bypassing, that slick, modern refusal to feel human pain. I call this the Feel It Fully protocol, and it runs contrary to virtually every soothing maxim peddled by contemporary spirituality. When a violent emotion erupts, searing rage, bottomless grief, paralyzing terror, the crushing weight of despair, your lifetime of conditioning screams at you to immediately fix it, purge it, transcend it, or reframe it. Here is the radical alternative. You will do nothing at all. Locate a private space, set a clock for 10 minutes, and commit to fully inhabiting the entirety of that emotion, without any attempt whatsoever to analyze it, change its nature, or force its release. Don't scribble frantically in a journal about its origins. Don't try to reverse engineer it to a childhood trauma. Don't use complex breathwork to deliberately move it through. Simply sit unflinchingly with the pure, raw sensation in your physical body. Where does it reside? Does it possess a temperature, a texture, a color, a density? Permit it to swell to its full, terrifying size. Allow it to move through your being completely, devoid of resistance. The crucial command here is absolute presence. Do not mentally escape into airy spiritual concepts. Do not dissociate back into the safety of intellectual thought. Remain anchored in your physical form, staying with the brute sensation, regardless of the severity of the discomfort. The discovery you will make is nothing short of revolutionary. Emotions, when experienced fully and met without resistance, utterly pass through the system, often in mere minutes. It is only when you battle them, attempt to intellectualize them, or try desperately to heal them that they coagulate, become stuck, and generate endless suffering. The emotion itself is not the flaw. Your relationship to that emotion is the sole problem. This practice exponentially strengthens your capacity to tolerate internal intensity. A prerequisite, as true awakening is fundamentally intense. You cannot possibly transcend what you refuse to feel. You cannot heal what you refuse to experience. And you cannot awaken while simultaneously running away from your own vital, messy humanity. Now, we address the stark loneliness, the painful shedding of old relationships, and the unsettling feeling of having no fixed place in the world. For this, you require the sovereignty practice. Every morning, before you touch your phone, before you engage with external demands, before you affix any social mask, sit quietly for 5 minutes and articulate this central truth aloud. I belong fundamentally and first to myself. I am the sole, ultimate authority of my own lived experience. I do not require external permission to be real. Then, pose these 3 challenging queries to yourself. What essential truth am I actively avoiding today? What am I consciously pretending not to know? Where am I still frantically soliciting approval instead of honoring the reality that dwells within me? And here is the hard part. Whatever honest answer surfaces, you must take a tangible action on it that very day. If the truth dictates that a long-held friendship has expired, you initiate the painful conversation. If the truth reveals that your chosen career path is now utterly incompatible with your being, you take one concrete, irreversible step toward its alteration. If the truth is that you have been sustaining a lie toward a loved one, you speak what is real. This is not a license for carelessness or malice. It is the focused building of the muscle of truth-telling, beginning with minor truths and progressing steadily to the monumental ones. Awakening demands sovereignty, the absolute cessation of seeking outside consent for your existence, the unwavering dedication to trusting your inner knowledge over all forms of external validation. Yet, sovereignty, when practiced in complete isolation, rapidly becomes unsustainable. Which brings us to the 4th practice, establishing an awakening anchor. You need one human being, only one, who genuinely comprehends the terrifying landscape you are currently traversing. This person is not there to fix you, save you, or hand you easy answers. They are there to witness you fully immersed in the mess without any impulse to sanitize it or clean it up. This may manifest as a skilled therapist versed in spiritual emergence, a trusted friend who survived their own dark night of the soul, or perhaps an authentic online collective engaged in similar processes. The inviolable key to this practice is simple. You must be brutally, utterly honest with this person or community. No performance of spirituality. No pretense that you are somehow further along or more awakened than you actually are. You must unveil the ugly parts. Show them the 3 a.m. existential breakdowns, the searing doubts, the flashes of anger at the entire process, the days you genuinely want to throw in the towel. The profound consequence of this radical honesty is immediate. By being truthful about the actual experience of awakening, you tacitly grant others the permission to be honest about theirs. This shatters the profound isolation that arises when everyone maintains the delusion that their journey is effortlessly beautiful when, in reality, it is unforgivingly brutal. Within that shared, ugly honesty, you locate the genuine strength required to simply keep moving. The fifth discipline is perhaps the most fundamental. Learning to live gracefully in the bardo, that disorienting liminal space suspended between the self you irrevocably were and the self you are slowly, agonizingly becoming. I term this the not-knowing practice. The mind, in its terror of the void, will frantically attempt to fill this emptiness with new certainties, new definitions, new narratives of self. You might find a desperate urge to instantly substitute the old false self with a shiny new spiritual identity. The healer, the awakened guru, the light worker. Recognize this impulse. It is merely a more sophisticated cage, subtle and gilded, but equally confining. Instead, commit to staying strictly within the profound discomfort of not knowing. When someone asks you who you are or what you do, observe the sudden, cold panic that surfaces when you cannot deliver the rote, rehearsed answer. When the urge arises to cement your identity, to claim a new status, actively pause. Say to yourself, I do not need to know who I am yet. I am currently in the process of becoming. This state is inherently terrifying, because identity grants us the comforting illusion of total control. But awakening requires the unconditional surrender of that control, the radical faith to trust the unfolding, even when the destination is completely obscured, and the courage to become truly comfortable within the agonizing discomfort of uncertainty. Finally, the practice that personally salvaged my sanity during the most profound periods of the dark night. The 3 a.m. truth session. If you are regularly jolted awake in the deepest hours of the night, barraged by overwhelming anxiety, intense emotional downloads, or relentless thought patterns, cease all attempts to force yourself back to sleep. This is your consciousness attempting to speak, and it speaks most forcefully when the external world is silent and your egoic defenses are at their lowest ebb. Maintain a simple journal and pen next to your bed. When you wake, immediately begin writing whatever flows forth, without editing, without striving for cohesion, without questioning if the content is spiritual or wise. Let your hand function merely as a conduit and witness what raw material emerges. You will be astonished by the torrent of truth that spills out the moment you relinquish control, the authentic feelings you've relentlessly suppressed, the crucial decisions you've perpetually deferred, the inner knowing you've been summarily dismissing. This is the direct voice of your inner authority, and it will guide you with an accuracy no external teacher could ever hope to match. These 6 practices are not engineered to make your awakening comfortable. They are designed to make it conscious. They will equip you to navigate this profound dissolution without completely losing your grip, to feel the scorching intensity without being utterly annihilated by it, and to trust the process even when it bears zero resemblance to the curated spiritual highlight reel you were originally sold. Always remember, your task is not to become someone new. Your true work is the painstaking excavation of the self you have always been, buried beneath years of rigid conditioning. These practices are the heavy machinery for that excavation. Utilize them not as a means to achieve some lofty future state of perfect enlightenment, but as tools to simply be real right now, in this moment, exactly as you are, fully immersed in the mess. And so, we arrive at the culmination of this transmission. If you have journeyed this far with me, something resonant deep within you recognizes the essential truth of these words. Not because I have introduced novel information, but because I have articulated and named the very experience you have been navigating in the sacred, painful privacy of your own unfolding. Let me bring this full circle, back to that 3 a.m. moment when I finally understood that I was not failing at awakening. I was simply following the wrong map. The map handed to you, the one so ubiquitously sold by the spiritual marketplace, promised a clean trajectory. From brokenness to wholeness, from unconsciousness to enlightenment, from your limited small self to your magnificent higher self. It delineated a predictable path adorned with recognizable, affirming milestones. And it clearly implied that by dutifully executing the steps, you would eventually arrive at a fixed destination labeled awakened. But that map was fundamentally dishonest. Perhaps not maliciously so, but undeniably profitable. As long as you remain reliant on that false diagram, you will indefinitely continue purchasing courses, enrolling in retreats, seeking out gurus, and consuming endless content, always striving to reach a static destination that does not exist in the way they portrayed it. The real map, The one the ancient mystics attempted to convey before their profound wisdom was commercialized and diluted, looks nothing like a clear, straight shot to bliss. It resembles a relentless, downward spiral into the absolute unknown. It involves death after death after death, each one tearing away another layer of protective, false identity. It demands the courageous willingness to completely forfeit everything you thought you were, for the mere possibility of becoming fundamentally real. And here is the truth that will either shatter your foundations or set you absolutely free. There is no ultimate arrival. There is no instantaneous moment when you become definitively, permanently, and perfectly awakened. There is only this single irreducible moment, this breath, this immediate choice, to choose reality or to lapse back into performance, to honor difficult truth or to seek cheap comfort, to step further into the cleansing fire or to retreat into the familiarity of the known cage. The mystics who preceded you, the Buddha, Christ, Rumi, the countless unnamed shamans and priestesses whose wisdom survives only in hushed whispers, they did not attain some final, static state of perfection. They simply chose, again and again, moment after excruciating moment, to be real, to feel the entire spectrum of existence, to permit the false self to perish as many times as necessary, and to trust the chaotic unfolding even when it bore the crushing appearance of total destruction. You are being presented with that exact same monumental choice, not once, but continuously, throughout the entirety of your remaining life. And every single time you choose truth over fleeting comfort, every time you choose raw authenticity over the addiction of approval, every time you choose the terrifying unknown over the safety of the familiar cage, in that very moment you are awakening. Not toward some future state of grace, but awakening to this moment, exactly as it is, in all its brutal reality. So, if you are currently submerged in the thick of the mess, if your awakening experience looks utterly foreign compared to the filtered Instagram version, if you are profoundly exhausted, confused, consumed by grief, raging, and utterly lost, allow me to articulate what nobody else will. You are not doing this incorrectly. You are doing it perfectly right. The utter devastation you feel is not a deviation from the path of awakening. It is the path. The agonizing dissolution of your identity is not a problem that needs to be fixed. It is the fundamental process itself. And if you find yourself standing at this harrowing edge right now, hearing the distinct call to jump but paralyzed by the sheer terror of the fall, knowing that the life you currently inhabit will be irrevocably shattered if you take this single step, let me assure you, the fear is entirely valid. The terror is absolutely real because you will, indeed, lose everything you currently believe yourself to be. But what awaits you on the far side of that death is worth infinitely more than anything you are forced to relinquish. You will find yourself, not the small, wounded self constructed from past pain and conditioning, but the vast, boundless self that was always patiently waiting beneath the layers of decades of performance. Your awakening is not required to look like anyone else's journey. It does not need to be perpetually peaceful, blissfully serene, or aesthetically photogenic. It simply must be true. It simply must be yours. And that, in and of itself, is entirely sufficient. You are enough right now in the deepest part of the mess, in the confusion, in the middle of the dissolution. You are undeniably enough. The practices I have shared today are not intended to deliver you to a hypothetical elsewhere. They are designed to help you be fully here, anchored in the intense rawness of your actual, immediate experience, rather than striving for the sanitized version you feel you should be having. So I extend to you this final invitation. Stop performing spirituality and begin living genuine truth. Stop ceaselessly seeking awakening and start being ruthlessly honest. Stop trying to desperately transcend your humanity and start fully, courageously inhabiting it. Because that messy, imperfect, fully felt, completely human experience, that is the precise, unmistakable face of awakening when it is real. If this transmission resonated with something deep and undeniable inside you, if it offered you a momentary respite from the solitude of your process, drop a comment below sharing one truth you've been terrified to admit about your awakening journey. And subscribe to this channel because I am wholly committed to continuing to share the real map, not the marketed one, the uncomfortable, searing truths that will actually secure your freedom, rather than the comfortable falsehoods that keep you seeking eternally. Remember the version of you that was always whole, always true, always real. She was never broken. She was merely entombed beneath years of heavy conditioning, relentless performance, and fabricated identities. And the awakening you are traversing, as brutal as it feels, is simply the required excavation. Trust the process even when it manifests as destruction. Trust yourself even when you no longer recognize the person staring back at you. Trust the fire because only what is false is flammable. And what remains, when the final ashes settle, is the unyielding diamond you have always been. Until we connect again in the next transmission, stay true, stay real, and hold fast to the understanding that your awakening, messy, painful, and nothing like theirs, is sacred, valid, and exactly as it needs to be. The journey is ongoing, and you are not compelled to walk it in isolation.